Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Olapic. We're excited to present top visual trends that will shape 2020. A couple of quick notes before we get started. During the webinar, the audience will be in listen-only mode. If you have any questions, we'll either have time at the end or we'll follow up directly after, so please use the Q&A feature at the top left of your screen. If you'd like to revisit this discussion or share it with a colleague, don't worry, a recording will be sent to you after this webinar via email. So my name is Megan Krasinski. I'm the Senior Manager of Product Marketing and Content Strategy. Joining me today will be Mike Griffin, our General Manager here at Olapic, Julie Price, who's our VP of Product Strategy and Marketing, Kaylee Barker, who's our Senior Director of Global Account Management, and Pao Suris, who's our GM of our short-form video solution. With that, I'll now pass it over to Mike to officially kick us off.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, and welcome to today's webinar. Last year we witnessed the meteoric rise of TikTok and Instagram and stories on Facebook and Instagram, and saw brands scramble to build strategies that would do more than just build awareness. And Instagram reports that 1/3 of the most viewed stories are from businesses, and eMarketer predicts that social video ad spending will grow 44% by 2021. We also saw growth in shoppable content sparked by offerings like Instagram Checkout, Pinterest Shop the Look, and Google Shopping. And according to Animoto, 60% of consumers who made a purchase from a brand found out about them on social media. These social commerce offerings put a spotlight on visual content, transforming UGC and video into direct purchase drivers. And at Olapic, we're excited to see visual content inhabiting these spaces closer to the point of purchase, embellishing PDPs through content syndication and in digital ads. Looking more holistically, there was also a trend in digitally native brands like Amazon, Glossier, and Casper investing in brick and mortar to create personalized, interactive pop-up experiences that help build excitement and loyalty amongst their consumers. We also saw consumer privacy and influencer marketing scandals in the aftermath, which has come in the form of consumer privacy legislation and reevaluation of how social media is measured. So through the Olapic lens, we believe in 2020 it will be important to find ways to build seamless customer experiences that connect the dots between content and commerce, allowing consumers to take action in the social spaces they're already spending so much time in. And be transparent and smart about how you use customer data to build your loyal, engaged base of customers and advocates. I spoke to one of our brands the other day, and their brand VP mentioned that their posts are being seen by less and less people due to some changes in the Instagram algorithm and others. While that's a short-term sad emoji, I think this is a real opportunity on two levels. A, for brands to lever Olapic's 3 pillars of UGC, short-form video, and influencer content to both create and curate authentic content that will resonate with consumers. And if you think about that algorithm and what resonates with that algorithm, it's really all about, is someone likely to engage with this? And if there's anything that we see from the world of creating short-form video and influencer content and user-generated content, it beats branded content and stock footage and stock photography on every level, across ads, across stories, across social. So the more you can lever that content, believe in that content, and use it for commerce purposes, the better. Secondarily, I would say that we're going to move out higher up the funnel with those use cases too. We've had a tendency to look a lot at commerce and its impact, but there's a lot of storytelling, a lot of the consumer journey, and a lot around fun back in shopping that can come from UGC and discovery of product that you're going to continue to see from us down the road. So with that, let me just go to today's agenda quickly. We're just going to go through our top visual marketing trends across short-form video, in-store and e-commerce, social media, influencer marketing, advertising, and then trust and privacy. So with that, I will now hand it over to Pao Suris to talk about short-form video.
Thanks, Mike. So as we were saying, one of the key trends that we've seen is that video is no longer reserved for the top of the funnel. What that means in plain words is that essentially before people were testing with video, they were playing around, they were putting it in organic social or in random places in their PDPs, and they were generating likes and overall comments. But what we've seen is that over time, both organic and paid social can generate a huge amount of conversion and further along loyalty and returning customers. And alongside with that, we've seen that more and more customers are being influenced by the videos they see before they buy. 49% of consumers said they purchase a product after seeing a brand video. That obviously has also boosted the presence of advertisers in social media channels, and more ad spend is being put in these channels year after year. There is some key consideration though when trying to build a short form video for engagement or for conversion. It is not the same to create a video and planned to essentially generate engagement and buzz around a brand than to design a video that is specifically built and designed to drive someone towards a purchase. Some key considerations here are: where do we place the logo, where do we place our call to actions, and what is the length of these videos. But going back to the general trend, what we've seen is that the short form video trend is unstoppable and it's moving fast towards conversion. But short form video and the digital space is not the only space that is grabbing more and more people's attention. In-store is also another trend, and Megan's going to be talking about that.
Amazing. Thanks, Pal. So I want to talk a bit about the trends of e-com and in-store shopping and how those lines will start to blur in 2020. So in the marketing world, a new decade still means a world of ever-evolving shopping behaviors. So let's start by diving into the clicks to bricks fun. What we're seeing is direct-to-consumer retailers are expanding, and that many are looking now to have a physical presence to engage more with their shoppers. So what does this look like? It means brands now have the opportunity to create not only powerful e-com experiences, but in-store as well. If you take our client NYX Cosmetics, for example, they created an immersive in-store experience featuring top user photos and videos of products on windows, and they even included a selfie wall, which made the whole experience just much more fun. So by creating an environment where consumers can come into the store, immerse themselves in the brand, and share photos on social media, retailers can generate real buzz around their products and encourage other potential customers to have a similar positive experience. So as you can see from some of our other clients, there's real power behind leveraging relatable content pretty much everywhere. Aerie, for example, put a call out for UGC on huge screens at their Times Square location, asking customers to tag the brand using @Aerie, and they featured the UGC on their billboard in one of the top tourist locations in the world. IKEA, on the other hand, who is known already for their amazing in-store experience, used giant screens to showcase their most recent UGC that was coming in on their products. So what are the key takeaways here? Really, it's just that digital is transforming in-store and helps to create a great customer experience. We also like this philosophy of a micro trip that's becoming increasingly popular amongst brands, which is essentially a less than a 5-minute experience designed for consumers to either order online and pick up in store or view and try the products that they see online. Okay, so now you've seen the importance of omni-channel UGC, but how does this all look into the social changes that we're seeing today? First, people are continuing to spend a good portion of their day on social. Those trends are definitely not dipping. Therefore, your presence here should definitely not go away. In fact, as you can see, social spending is expected to increase in the US by 20% this year. But with this investment, how do brands measure their impact? As most of us know, and what caused a bit of a shakeup last year, was Instagram experimenting with removing likes. The goal of this being to have more of a focus on the sharing aspect versus how many likes did your post receive. So what does this mean in terms of influence and engagement and measurement? It means just exactly as Facebook intended. We need to be more authentic in our connections. We're seeing more and more brands connect with nano influencers, representing accounts with only a couple thousand followers. This, of course, doesn't mean that marketers looking to build relationships with bigger influencers should stop doing so. It's simply to really understand what any given influencer brings to the table and whether or not their audience is meaningful to your brand. So some key takeaways to think about here. Number one, think about targeting influencers that you would like to just work with on a regular basis. And number two, in terms of measurement, start thinking about adopting more reliable ways of tracking engagement, whether that be through direct response KPIs, views, comments, and CTR. Okay, to go to my final trend, I want us all to go back to the basics. So brands should be empowered to leverage their existing communities, to turn their fans to advocates, and to really boost their presence. If we all eventually live in this world of no more likes, marketers should focus on creating meaningful connections with their audience versus everybody and anybody. Long-term engagement means much more than a short-term spike in likes. At the end of the day, brands really need to drive meaningful conversations, or even leverage their employee community to power their brand. As you can see here, 45% of consumers are actually more likely to research a product when someone like an employee posts about it. So the main takeaway here, I think it's just to make your social media truly social. Conversation is key. So reply to comments, direct messages, and really engage with your followers. So with that, I'll pass it over to Julie, who will continue talking about leveraging communities, but in the social commerce space.
Thanks, Megan. So looking at advertising trends, generally we see UGC used on product detail pages at the point of purchase in the form of visual content, user reviews, and the like. However, with the engagement rates we're experiencing, we believe there is immense value, still untapped, in utilizing UGC throughout the entire consumer journey, especially in digital advertising. One of the ways we're seeing it used today, due to its social nature, is natively in Facebook ads, but we expect to see UGC start to appear in more and various paid media channels into 2020 and beyond. If you take a look at the data, we expect UGC's utilization to expand, not just in paid media channels, but to further reaches of the marketing funnel when we're seeing 6.9x engagement and 5x click-through rates versus branded content. And if you're like me, who considers my entire campaign ROI, not just return on ad spend, it's easy to make the leap to lower customer acquisition costs and increase customer LTV. I wanted to share some immediate examples of what some of our customers are doing with UGC and ads, but again, we expect to start seeing UGC activated across expanded paid media channels here and in the near future. So I'll leave you with some next steps that you can take away if this is something you would like to begin testing. But I strongly suggest that if you're someone who manages a digital advertising budget, that you start thinking about how to leverage your UGC in all your paid media channels, starting with Facebook and strategically moving outward. And while we know that social media drives a ton of traffic to the point of purchase, we're seeing social channels become the point of purchase as well. This is the social commerce trend that we're seeing, and we expect this to grow into 2020 and beyond. This is where closing the gap between content and commerce happens. So looking at the stats, we saw 21% of global internet users completing a purchase directly through a social channel in Q3 of last year, up from just 13% the year before. Additionally, eMarketer reported that on Cyber Monday last year, when an estimated $9.2 billion was spent online, according to Adobe, just 2.6% of sales came via social channels. So not a saturated channel with lots of work to do there. So expect to see interesting solutions here in 2020. So some final thoughts around how you can begin thinking about social commerce and putting your visual content to work for you. But again, expect to see a lot of movement in social commerce into 2020 and moving forward. And now I'll pass it over to Kaylee to talk about consumer privacy, which is, as we all know, a very hot topic.
Thanks, Julie. So yeah, thank you. I'm going to take you through the final trend. In a post-GDPR world, consumer privacy, as you all know, is still very much a hot topic. As CNN reported earlier this month from the CES Technology Conference in Las Vegas, the hottest product at CES is privacy. While this focus on privacy arguably started in 2018 with the introduction of GDPR, that legislation wasn't necessarily the catalyst for data privacy reform, but rather a solution to heightened consumer concern over the collection and use of personal information. In the time since GDPR, we've witnessed consumer privacy breaches and in turn similar laws and a laser focus on how consumer data is used and protected. In early January 2020, the California Consumer Privacy Act was put in place, regulating the collection, use, and disclosure of consumer data, which in turn provides enhanced privacy rights and transparency into how companies use and share personal information. CCPA gives consumers the choice to opt out of data collection and the right to ask companies to remove the data collected about them, with penalties for companies who don't comply. Big tech firms such as Apple and Mozilla are providing consumers with new tools that shut out data collection. In that same vein, Oracle found that 87% of North American consumers would request that brands remove their personal information if given the option, compared to just 34% of Europeans. In addition, there is similar legislation to CCPA already in proposal, demonstrating a trend towards more transparent use of consumer data. Bigger companies like Microsoft are leading the way here, and I quote, "They see privacy as a fundamental human right and are extending GDPR to consumers all over the world and CCPA to all consumers in the US, not just California." With Gartner forecasting that worldwide spending on cybersecurity will reach $133.7 billion by 2022, consumer privacy will continue to be king. So to finish with our key takeaway for 2020, if affected by CCPA, be aware of your company's plans to comply and ensure that consumers have at least 2 simple ways to opt out of data collection and clear language explaining how your brand is using their information. That concludes our key trends for 2020. I'll hand back to Mike for a Q&A and to wrap up.
Great. Thank you, Kaylee, and thank you to all the panelists today. Just to answer a few administrative questions, we will be sharing copies of this deck post our presentation, as well as a top visual marketing trends report for shaping 2020 that should be out, I think, tomorrow. Great. So we've got a few questions that we'd love to field. First one I'll take. We got a good question around what percent of a campaign should have UGC to kind of get at that 50% lift that we referred to. So I'll say a few things. One, and admittedly we see the world through our own lens, but the brands that we see executing the best have an element of UGC in everything that they're doing. And that's not just UGC, but it's really a community base, right? So if you think about that tactically, if you're sending an email, should there be a UGC strip that has that category or that product? If you're sending an abandonment retargeting email, should you be sending UGC or should you be sending stock footage that the client has already seen? If you have elements on your PDP, there should be a section that speaks to UGC. Best practice that we see is mixing UGC in with your stock content so consumers can see A, the model, and B, real people using and interacting with the product. We find for best results. So I know that doesn't really answer your question as to how much should be pure UGC and how much should be not, but we recommend a mix. And if you think about some of the stats that we showed, 50% was kind of our blended rate as we looked at a lot of things. But what we were doing there, just to be clear, was comparing UGC to non-UGC activation. On .com, we see kind of somewhere between a 1.2 and 1.6x in increases in interaction rates. For people that use more interactive gallery type widgets of UGC versus kind of like a plain widget that just shows UGC. There's another trend out there, which is having a handle, which is all about UGC. Like Four Seasons does an amazing job of pretty much committing their entire handle and social posting to UGC. But if you think about them and brands like them, much higher engagements for the UGC dominated handle versus a brand stock footage dominated handle, to the tune of 2x. Usually a smaller community and a smaller followership for the UGC dominated handle, but much higher interaction. And if you think about that Instagram algorithm, I think that delta is going to get even wider when you think about just people seeing the post in general. On email, click-through rates and revenue were about a 32 to 39% increase when people are including UGC in those elements. I would say we don't have enough of a sample for UGC and ads, but it's a priority this year for 2020 for us to get more results and see better interaction and better results around putting UGC in ads. But again, just to close, I would say combining the community into all those elements is where we see the best results. I'll turn it over to Pao. I've seen a couple of questions coming his way. So first, Pao, you talked about using video for bottom of the funnel. Can you share any best practices to increase click-through rate?
Yes, so 2 quick best practices to increase CTR would be essentially making the video uncomfortably short. Companies tend to make videos that are longer because they have a lot to say, but making things that are uncomfortably short first, and second, have a clear call to action will normally yield better CTR.
Awesome. And then you mentioned something about creating videos at scale for product pages. Loaded question, I know the answer, and it's a good one, Pal, but is this something that Olapic offers, and how does it work?
Yes, it's something that we offer through our short-form video solution. It's called Dynamic Creative, and it's a purely managed service that essentially consists in Olapic taking your product feed. We run this product feed through a template, and then we generate thousands of videos for you to deploy on your EDPs.
Awesome, thank you. We have a question also, Pal, coming at you again. I think you somewhat answered this with the last response, but is there a type of short form video that you think performs best? Is it more, animated and interactive? I know we've added a bunch of tools lately for people to kind of really play with the fourth wall, and we've seen some interesting things there about kind of those thumb-stopping moments, but maybe you can expand a little more on that.
So ultimately, there's no guaranteed performance, but depending on the marketing objective, normally videos that are uncomfortably short, have the brand logo right at the start and a clear call to action, will show greater performance. Over time, only a strategy based on volume, test and learn, and personalization can yield better performance than current performance. Great.
And Julie, I know I said the sample size was small, but it looks like we do have some results around this. It'd be great to share. Got a question around how effective is UGC when used in ads, and any recommendations to start using UGC in ads?
Yeah, so I shared some data in the deck, which we're going to share out, and we also have some additional details in the marketing report. But we're seeing, as I mentioned, 5x click-through rates there. So that's just one kind of example of an increase that we're seeing. And as far as starting to use that, I also mentioned I would say if you're kind of new to the game, of course Facebook, because it's so native to the channel, is a great start. And then strategically planning digital media buying outward from there, I think, is a good plan.
Yeah, and shameless plug alert, we are activating as we speak Facebook Ads Manager connectivity to make it easier for our brands that pump in those ads seamlessly. So really excited about that. So with that looks like that's all of our questions. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's one more question on the webinar, which says, what should we consider regarding permission for UGC?
Okay, so how we work with brands is we have a series of, there's a little bit of art and science to it. It's something that our account managers work with the teams on to make sure that the language is optimized. We have a lot of brands that have really playful approaches. Brand by brand, they make their decisions on the kind of permissioning that is granted. Typically for our brands, it's very open-ended around getting permission for UGC. Everyone has to get permission for it to go into approved content. Our brands typically have about 5 different scripted questions that they need a definitive response back from that's publicly viewable for those to go through. And our typical stats are that we get about a 70% approval rate with an optimized strategy from the brands in terms of asking a consumer for rights to use the image and then getting that image back. But it's something our account managers work with specific to language and some elements of the Olapic tool, like the ability for that to be in multi-language and for that to get sniffed out by the platform so that it gets asked in the right language with the right kind of tone. And then also how to avoid some of the Instagram spamming functionality and make sure that those questions are getting pasted and pulsed at the right time. And then how to handle hashtags versus the brand being specifically mentioned are all things that our platform handles, but all go sort of into that algorithm of how do you optimize and get really nice 70% approval rates that also help make your legal team happy as well. So again, that's kind of the short version of a longer answer, but that's kind of it in short. Great, so with that, I think we'll be signing off. And again, we're happy to handle any follow-up questions that might be out there. And thank you again for your attention and for the great questions. And we'll be in touch via email. And please do reach out if you'd like to schedule more of a one-on-one to learn more about any of these topics. Thanks again, bye.